What's up, trading addicts? Welcome to the weekly watch list. This is Jeff Kohler, aka the Option Addict, from over at www.tradingaddicts.com. Also tabbed blogger over at ibankcoin.com. This week, going to talk over just kind of technical state of the market. Got a lot of economic events due out this week, which could be earth-shattering. But for the most part, I think in terms of market analysis, so long as we're leaving long tails at prior highs and referencing those areas as levels of support, I think that's kind of a good definitive line in the sand to be bullish. Below that, to be bearish. Also, the one thing that I'm watching really carefully in the coming weeks is how the VIX responds to some of its relative lows and whether or not it can continue to get back down into the $12 range or not. So this week, with a lot of economic events due out, I think that'll likely influence price. But for right now, what I've been calling for is kind of more of the low volatility consolidation, which probably lasts another week. If we continue to see that, it should be a good week for trade. And as long as you have good setups in stocks that really haven't made any significant moves yet, I think those are going to be some good places to focus. So let me take you through a few that we have been watching, some new ones to the list, ultimately that have not either broken out or made a significant move. We'll start with stocks I'm looking at to play options on, and number one on that list is Workday. Workday's yet to have a clean close above 69, so a breakout there could be pretty powerful. If you look at this stock, it does pretty good when it ends up breaking out to new highs. I'm also a big fan of Green Mountain Coffee right here, the way that it's been kind of putting in a reversal. So looking for a little bit of a pop in that stock this week, hopefully closer to 78.80 as a price target. That's where we'll look to book gains. Also, Rubicon, which is a name we were watching last week, started to get a little bit of volume. If it can turn up and stay above 8 and turn back up towards this range, you might see a pretty significant breakout here ahead of earnings. Also, I love the 3D stocks here this week, whether that's Triple D, whether that's SSYS, or whether that's XONE. To me, these are all near levels of support that are starting to turn up. All pretty bullish structure, so probably looking to get long one of those names here this week, depending on how they open up tomorrow. Next on the solar list, I've got my eye on Solar City, SCTY, because it's been consolidating, coiling up around 40, 42, and I think it might end up trying to make a break for it this week. First Solar is also in a pretty good spot as well. So those names I'm watching. UNXL, which has been a popular name, a name that's been often asked about, but it's a name that's gone completely dead. And for me, I prefer when stocks do that. I get really interested in stocks when they're not moving as opposed to when they're moving a lot. So the way that this thing's kind of wound down here towards its lows, volume has completely fell off. If this thing can turn up and get above 14, I'd look for a real quick pop back up to about 16 or so this week. Outside of that, ADHD, love the way this stock's setting up. It might do this for a few more days, though, but I think ultimately it spends probably a day or two around 10, and it's going to make another break for the highs. So that's a name that I'm watching this week. Roughly illiquid, but I think something that's still pretty manageable. When it does start moving, it attracts the volume. Molycorp is a name that I'm watching this week just because this 720, 730 reference point area is pretty strong, and there's a really thin volume pocket all the way back up to 10 in this name, which is why I'm also watching REE as a derivative play off of that as well, which is setting up a nice bottom with a nice volume pocket. As far as the momentum stocks up here, the only stock I really have my eyes on up here is Google, the way that it's been spending a couple months here around this 900 level. If it can turn up and get above 888, I like the setup. If it can't, I don't. So that's the level that I'm watching. JCPenney's, which is a name we talked about last week, kind of on my trash stocks radar, getting a little bit of volume here. Turned up really nicely on Friday, but overall, I think if you see a break above 17, it starts to make a move back up towards these volume ranges up in about 18, 19. Last but not least, the name that I'm watching here this week is Pandora, which has been rejecting this $18 level. And so on a pullback, I like this a little closer to 18, but on a move all the way back up north of 20, I think we'll see. On the cheap stocks list, I think you got to watch RENN this week, RENN. You can see this stock's had some pretty tall spikes, but as long as it continues to get bought down in the low threes, I think that's a name that's going to eventually make its way back up to 4. IQNT, that's a stock that we sold out of here about a week or two ago. Looks ready to make another move outside of this recent range. LPR is a familiar name that we've been talking about, looking for a reversal back up into this volume pocket. Cheap name, penny stock, but still looks really good. OPCO, which is getting really close to breaking out to all-time highs. That's a name that should be watched into strength. Also on the trash stock list, we've been talking about National Bank of Greece, NBG, which might be a player this week. Same thing with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We'll look at Fannie here just real quick. But looking very similar to the last time when we bought it. You guys remember the last time that we bought it way back here in early May for about 80 cents before it took off and went to $5. It's looking very similar to it did back through then. And I think the risk cycle is just right where we see a spike in those names this week. A couple more. I like this little plug power setup. That's a little cheap stock that looks like it might make it a little move. And MHR, Magnum Hunter. Again, all I'm looking for this week are just stocks that have been consolidating that haven't been moving recently. Those should be the next stocks that want to make a move and that have a pretty decent amount of upside if the market at least stays flat. So those are some of the names that I'm watching this week, guys. Should be a pretty decent week of trade. If you have any questions or want to trade these setups along with us, please visit me at www.tradingaddicts.com or ibankcoin.com. This has been The Option Addict. That's been my watch list. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome week.
Yo, I live it and I speak it. My religion is reefer. Big money.